Welcome to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Circle, the simple and AI-powered rewards and recognition platform for employee engagement.
Every year, the first Friday in March is celebrated as the Employee Appreciation Day for employers and managers to set aside their time to appreciate their employees for all that they do. Of course, we should appreciate our employees every single day at work, but having a day devoted to the cause definitely draws a lot of extra attention. In fact, I'm so happy to announce that at Vantage Circle, we are celebrating the whole month of March as the Employee Appreciation Month, and you are tuning into the first episode of our special Employee Appreciation podcast series. Hi everyone, I'm your host and welcome to the first episode of our special podcast series that we're hosting this month. In this episode of the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast, please help me to welcome Dr. Bob Nelson, who 25 years ago invented Employee Appreciation Day. He is considered the leading advocate for employee recognition and engagement worldwide and has sold over 5 million books on those topics. His books include 1501 Ways to Reward Employees, the 1001 Rewards and Recognition Fieldbook, 1001 Ways to Energize Employees, the Management Bible, 1001 Ways to Engage Employees, and his latest book, Work Made Fun Gets Done. Dr. Bob has been featured extensively in the national and international media, including the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, CNN, ABC, PBS, and NPR, about how to motivate today's employees. He has presented on 6 continents and worked with 80% of the Fortune 500 companies. Welcome to the show, Dr. Bob Nelson.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's such a pleasure to have you on our podcast today. Thank you for joining me. So I would like to start off by asking about your upbringing and your journey to becoming the world's leading authority on employee recognition, motivation, and engagement.
Yes, well, it's all one step at a time, right? And I've always worked in human resources, and I've been blessed with people I've worked for and learned from. I worked for and with Ken Blanchard for 10 years. He wrote The 1 Minute Manager. And then I got my PhD with Dr. Peter F. Drucker, who's considered the father of modern management. He's passed on now, but I was able to learn a lot from him in my classes and work. And more recently, I'm a personal coach for Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, who's the number one executive coach in the world. So
okay.
If I'm able to reach further, it's because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, as they say. And then every company I work for, inevitably you learn something from what they're doing that's working well, right. And I'm quick to absorb and pass it on to others. I've at this point have worked with on all continents and 80% of the Fortune 500 companies, right. Best companies in America, and most of those are multinational.
Bob, you have written 31 books to date, if I'm not wrong, and clearly your focus has been on employee recognition. So how do you help organizations improve employee engagement and recognition? Would love to know that.
Well, I did my doctoral research on the topic of employee recognition, and the most proven principle of management and of performance is you get what you reward. Whatever you recognize will be repeated. It's true of any relationship, not so certainly with employees, but if it works on your boss too. It works with the colleague. It works with your spouse. It works with your kids. If you pay attention to and acknowledge and thank people for the desired behavior and performance that they do, they will do more of it. So if you want your kids to clean up their room, you can nag them and yell at them and threaten them forever, and they're never going to do it. But if you instead just notice, and when they do something in that general direction, thank you so much for doing that. It really shows that you want to be part of the family and pitch in. that means a lot to me, your dad, and they will do more of that without being cajoled that they will, because the attention and the focus is actually more powerful than you can bribe them too. You can say, I'll pay you if you do this, but I find that it's even more powerful than money. Of course, money's important, and employees have to pay their bills, but so really do both, and you'll have the bases covered.
Right. Also, Bob, I would like to know your views on fostering a culture of employee appreciation year-round. Now, of course, a special day has a special value. It brings a lot of attention. It draws a lot of attention to the workplace. But what would be your suggestion to the managers who are listening to us today about how they should, create a workplace culture for year-round employee appreciation?
Well, it should be real year-round, and so the day is just to call it out, to say, and some companies do, something for the whole week, and I know your organization is doing something for the whole month, and that's great. But it's not just one day that's important. It's a reminder. It's a reminder to leaders everywhere that if you haven't been doing this, if you're not doing it, it's never too late to start.
Right.
And my recommendation is start in a very personal way, that with the people that report to you, and what you value about them, and tell them that. And if you have specific examples that are recent, bring those up. Management is in the real time today. It's not what you do at the end of the year or the end of the quarter. It's what you do today and tomorrow.
Right.
And so focus there. And if you haven't ever done it before, you'll probably be surprised at the reaction you get. If people might be shocked initially, but if it's real, then they do want it to continue, and they'll be more likely to be thankful to be working for a leader like you, and then it strengthens your bond to the employee, and it makes them think twice or three times about leaving, because why would they go? They've got a great boss now. So I find that leaders that are good at this, it becomes a magnet. It helps them be a magnet for talent, and it helps them to hold on to talent. And even if they change jobs, then often those people are going to want to follow them to wherever they're going, and that does happen. And so it's a very powerful thing to do for a leader personally, but also it helps the leader get their goals met and their tasks done. It helps them, and it will help them in the future as well. So it's basically paying into a well-being, or Dr. Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, he used to call it the emotional bank account. You have to make deposits before you can make withdrawals. And so if you put some positive into the relationship, you're building goodwill with that person. And then, yes, they're going to be eager to pay you back and volunteer for the next project, or work late if someone's needed, because they want to thank you for what you've done for them, is what I found. So it's a reciprocity is kicks in, and that's very real. It's not a theory. It really does work.
Right. Managers, most of them know how much appreciation matters, but there are still some managers who doesn't actually know that how much appreciation is enough. So they are the ones who underappreciate the team, right?
Or even worse than that they're against it. I actually, I just worked with a 40,000 person multinational corporation, high-tech corporation that was in 39 countries. And I remember an employee told me that their VP, their manager, who happened to be Indian, said, "Don't be wasting your time on any of that people stuff. We got a job to do. I want you to focus on the job." And very, very short-sighted, because you're gonna drive people to work more. That's going to work in the short term, and then they're going to be burnt out, and they're looking for relief at a different company, where they can have a more normal life and not be constantly in fear of being called out and punished. Fear is a very short-term driver, short-term motivation. Having a relationship where people are acknowledged and thanked for doing a good job. And by the way, the manager, I'm here to help you get to where you want to go to next. So we're going to be talking about learning opportunities in your current job, and I'm going to be asking about what things you'd like to do more of, and they have an investment in your future. You have a manager like that you work for. It's only one out of every 4 or 5 that any of us will have in our lifetime. If you happen to be working for one now, you think twice about leaving. And I was when I worked with Ken Blanchard, as I mentioned, for a decade, I had 5 different jobs. Every one of them was created for me. So when I start to get bored or something, I'd Ken would say, "Well, what do you want to do next, Bob?" And I said, "Well, I really thought the company could benefit from doing this. That would be great if you want to focus on that." And off I'd go. So it was actually hard to leave because they're so accommodating.
You have invented Employee Appreciation Day 25 years ago, Bob.
26 years ago, yes.
Right. So how do you see employee appreciation has changed over the time?
Well, it's gotten a lot bigger than me, so I feel justified that I kind of helped to light the fuse, that there's something here that's very real that you need to pay attention to. And so it's very warming. I just talked to someone yesterday. They said, "You mean you're the person I have to thank for my last company that did things for me all week on Employee Appreciation Week?" And I guess so, But it was really just serving an awareness to raise the awareness on the importance of thanking people when they do good work. Not random thanks, not that's a nice outfit you have on, but a sincere, personal thank you in a timely manner when they've done a good job at something you asked them to do or they did of their own initiative. A desired behavior performance. If you see something, say something, and in a positive sense. And so that was the impetus to launch the day in conjunction with the book 1,001 Ways to Reward Employees that came out and is now in its 64th printing. Has sold 2 million copies. So I love that people have taken that and run with it. So the book I did. Again, it was on my doctoral research, but I published it before I finished my doctorate work, which made it a lot hard to get back to it because I spent about 12 years just zigzagging across the country and around the world talking about this topic, solid for 12 years on employee recognition and what it is and why you got to take a look at it if you haven't. And by the way, it's not that hard to do. So you don't have to start with a huge company party. It's certainly not just at the end of the year. That's too little, too late. It's the simple daily things that are really get you more traction. Right. And to do that, then you can always build on it to do something even better or to spend money. It doesn't have to. I guess it's really important to me to say it doesn't have to start with the money or things that cost money. So we all love to have we need money and we want more money, but it's not just about the money or about the party or about it's about sincere appreciation and again which is something everybody needs. In my research on people that 99.7% of employees said they like being recognized and thanked for something that they did, even something they were paid to do. So a lot of times, sometimes leaders say, "Well, if I'm paying them to do that, why should I have to thank them as well?" Well, you don't have to thank them, but if you could get a lot more mileage out of it than if you're paying them, but they could be paid wherever they go to work. If you want them to stay, you should consider doing more than just paying them, because then if it's all in the pay, then you say, well, look at the number on your paycheck. That should be thanks enough. And now it's like, well, you're a jerk, I didn't have to work, overnight or through the night to finish that project, and I'll never do it again because you're a jerk. and so people control their own discretionary energy and how hard they hit it. And if they do the job until it's done right, and if they go above and beyond as a matter of course, or if they only work hard when someone's watching them. And if you're the manager that's focused more on the mistakes they made and embarrassing them in front of their peers, and you're already losing the campaign. And if anything, they're looking for another job. So it's just it's a simple. This is what kind of surprised me when I started this journey. Is like it's such a simple, common sense thing. Yet, in my experience, I'd worked at a number of corporations at that point. I didn't see where it was commonly practiced. Voltaire in 1670 said that common sense is often not very common. And this is common sense, but in our current workaday world where people are going so fast, and we're working from a distance, and we're in a very constantly changing work environment and challenging competitive environment, it's very easy to get something that's simple to get lost in the mix, and then not to be doing it. And that's the reality I find. I work with companies that are good companies, and they're successful, and they pay people well and above industry average. But if you're not adding this to the formula, then people will not consistently do their best, for you at their leader. Work is a very personal thing, and they might have pride in work, but it's got to be reinforced by those they work for and those they work with, and ideally by so their manager, their peers, and ideally by people above them, and just having an executive know what you did can be a very powerful motivator. That someone that person knows who I am, and they heard about the project I did. Yes, life is good. That's what you're going to talk about at dinner with your spouse that evening. Guess who called me, today? Guess who, I got an email or a phone call from this executive. And, some very well-established CEOs used to be very good at this. Jack Welch was very good at this. And he would call out and send personal notes to people. And so I find that you get exceptional leaders, and this is often in their bag of tricks for how they drive extraordinary performance and extraordinary loyalty to them and the company that they're working for.
Bob, so many people are blessed to have worked with you under your guidance, and your books are an ultimate source of examples of what organizations are doing to enhance employee appreciation, or what organizations can do to enhance employee appreciation culture. But on this occasion of Employee Appreciation Day, and I have the person with me, so I won't be missing the chance to ask you about a few ideas about celebrating the day at work.
Sure. And so I started to get into this. Probably where I most advocate is not real flashy and sexy and exciting, but it's very important. And that's a personal thank you to someone that works for you, or to each person that works for you, and for each of them, what you most value about having them as an employee. It doesn't cost any money. It's very important that they hear that from you, and maybe even open it up to your team and their colleagues. So one fun activity, and you could do this on Zoom, so you could do this even if everyone isn't in the same room, is called a praise barrage. And that's where you say, hey, before we get started here on our meeting, I'd like to just take a few moments and go around our work team. And as I call out someone's name, I'd like everyone else to share out loud what they most value about working with that person. 100% positive. Let's start with Jerry. Okay, let's go to Sally. And you take 10 minutes and you go around the group, and now what has happened? Everybody has gotten feedback from people they work with that's 100% positive about what they do well. And one, it's going to make them feel great. It's going to bond your team more tightly together. And whatever was called out by the group for a person, any person, whatever is called out that they were helpful or good at, I guarantee they will even be better at that going forward. So if you say, Jerry, I just love how good you are at drawing out the quiet people of our team to make sure we get the best thoughts from everyone. Jerry's going to be all over that going forward. Or Sally, you're so good at summarizing so we don't forget our progress and we document that before we change topics. Sally's going to be the super closer and summarizer going forward. Or Tony, you're so creative in coming up with ideas that we hadn't thought of, and that's going to be his super super skill going forward. It's just it happens every time. So it's fun to. I think it's very powerful to know that you all have, it's fun, and you all have, any leader has the power to tap into that.
Right, it's fun.
And so if you're not doing it, you gotta give it a try. You gotta get in the game.
We can as well share that in the social media as well, right?
Absolutely. Social media, and sometimes the recognition, if it goes out. I worked with one company where a manager, and it seemed very funny, but he told his it was a sales team that whoever makes their goal this month, I'm going to call your mom and tell them what a great job you did. And it was funny, but he really did it then. He goes, give me the number. I said I will. And the moms, their son never calls, and now you hear from their boss and they're doing the great job he did. And they start crying. They love it. And the word gets back to the son or daughter, and it's very powerful. It's very emotional. And that's one of 1,000 things you can do. So recognition really, I feel, is all around us every day. And what I hope to do with Employee Appreciation Day and with my book or books is to call attention to it, to make it a bigger smorgasbord that people can draw from. So because often a manager they may be good at certain things. So for example, as a manager, like I've gotten feedback that I'm good at thanking people, which I'm advocating. But then I've also gotten feedback that I'm not so good at thanking people publicly. I go, well, I didn't realize that, but it was true. And so then I made more efforts to, okay, well, if that's important to my people, that I say things publicly in front of others that are outside of our department or in front of maybe the whole company, then darn, I'm going to make that happen. And if maybe initially that was out of my comfort zone, but because I didn't know, I didn't feel, was that my place to do that at a company meeting, to call out to people? Well, in fact, it made them feel great, and it kind of sent a message to other managers that, wow, you can make your employees feel great too. And what's going on in your area? I worked last fall with NASA, which is ranked the number one best place to work in federal government and federal government in the United States. The federal government has 2.8 million employees. NASA, the space systems out of Houston, Texas, they brought me in, and here's the best place to work in federal government. I knew I was going to learn stuff, and just walking the door, I could feel the energy of the excitement of working for NASA, and the things on the walls, and overhearing conversations. And I was in a meeting of managers, and darn, we get close to wrapping up, and darn if someone doesn't say, well, as is our custom, we want to save the last 10 minutes of our meeting to go around our group of leaders here and ask everyone to share one thing they've done to thank someone on their team since we have last met together. And wow, well, I never heard that before. and then they did it, and it was just, you could just feel the pride and the energy of the room go up. And I noticed that some of the leaders would take notes on each other's ideas. Gary, I'm going to try that. I never thought of that. And they became they would learn from each other. They became a self-learning organization. So they're already the best, but they're going to remain the best because they keep getting better and better. So, wow, that to me is a powerful lesson, and it's one that, in sharing it with others, that say, hey, you can do this too. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to have the really huge holiday party or the summer picnic that maybe even families don't want to go to. It's step back from it, and if you're not sure what to do, ask people, ask your employees, and ask them and do things that people want. So, for example, one of the examples I have in my latest book was a CEO that we said, a couple of times a year we do a employee morale activity for all the staff, and he said no matter what we did, it never seemed to work. That people didn't want to do it, or they'd complain, or whatever it was, and he gave it to another executive to do, and same results. And finally, he said, I got to come at this differently. And so he got a millennial, a young employee, and said, would you be interested in helping do this? Yes, I would. And the person used social media tools to creatively come up with ideas and to see what worked with people's schedules. And they ended up doing something that the company had never done before. And everyone loved it, and the families all loved it, and the kids of the families loved it, and the executives loved it. And all of a sudden they hit a home run because they came at it differently. And they got someone different who had some skills that maybe the executives didn't have, and certainly had more of a corner on excitement and fun, and they made it a swimming success. Right. Wow. What they ended up doing is they did I'm not sure if they had anything like this in India, but in the U.S. there's these places are these medieval shows, and it's like you go and you see jousting, and they serve a medieval dinner, and people are dressed up. And there's turkey legs and stuff, and it's just everyone had a blast. It was fresh and unique, and everyone loved it, and a huge success. Now a different group of people that might not have been the right thing to do. So you got to know your people. So with anyone, whether you just manage one person or a whole team, it really starts with getting to know them better and find out what they are interested in and how they like to be recognized. Don't assume that I worked often when I work with the company, and I'll say, what do you do on recognition to recognize that? Oh, we're all over it. We're always doing stuff, and we've got our benefits, and we try to pay people better, and we've got the holiday parties, and we've got on people's birthdays we'll do something for them, and I'll say, why? It sounds like you're doing a lot. I didn't really hear recognition on that list, because recognition makes people feel special. And if you have, if your birthday is this month, whoever has a birthday this month, we've got a cake in the meeting room on the 15th, that doesn't really make anyone feel special. And maybe they didn't want to celebrate their birthday. You're assuming that they did with, personally, I like to celebrate my birthday with more personally with my close family and stuff. I don't want to do it with a bunch of people I barely know. So it's like, you got to not assume that so many leaders, they assume that they know what their employees will want. Or another example, I worked for a company where the CEO was a big golfer. So he loved golf, and he golfed every week. And so he had to brainstorm, this take the whole company out for a golf outing. And for him, it's another day on the links. But for the employees, they were mortified. I don't know what to wear. I'm going to look stupid. I've never golfed. I'm not very good at golfing. And so suddenly what was meant to be a joyous occasion to have fun, to get to know each other, people were dreading, and they called in sick that day. And it was all, none of the results the CEO hoped to have, because he didn't stop and find out what people wanted to do, and to survey them and to talk to them and to have options and have them choose, for example. So it's
giving them the voice to speak about themselves, actually.
Yeah. And so I find, like, if you do recognition, often companies will do it around periodic, around on a timeline, around people just showing up for work. So a years of service award is very common. 92% of organizations do that. If you've been here, 1 year or 5 years or 10 or 20 years, we do something for you and we give you a gift or a plaque or something. And that, that really doesn't do much for recognition. In fact, if you are primarily recognize people around stuff like that, around years of service and their birthday, you're reinforcing presence over performance. And it will lead to a culture of entitlement where people say, hey, I've been here another year, you need to do something for me, regardless of what job they did, how well they did their job. And it's a dangerous trap to fall into, because now you're doing stuff just because people expect it, and you're not getting better performance as a result. So, if anyone that's ever done this, they brought in, donuts or pastries to share with the team, to be, you do that to be nice, and then the next, you bring it on Friday, for example, and the next week, Friday, it's a beautiful day, so you want to celebrate the beautiful day, so you bring in donuts again. Now all of a sudden it's an expectation. Hey, it's Donut Friday. Where are the donuts? And in fact, now it's not good enough that you brought in donuts. They have to be, did you get any with the sprinkles on it? And there's order for bear claws and fruit fillings. And here the leader was trying to do something nice, now something he has to do or she has to do and isn't really getting anything for it. So it's a slippery slope if you do things for the wrong reason and in the wrong timing. Much, much, much more better to focus on performance and desired behavior, core values of the organization, and examples of that, to call out and encourage other people to do what that person did. Much more powerful. If you reinforce performance, you will get more performance. If you reinforce presence, you get more people just saying, hey, you got to do something else because here, I'm still here, So it sounds silly when I talk about it like that, but that's the reality. So many companies are out there, they're doing stuff because we've always done it. We've always done this, we do recognition. We do it around the holidays, end of the year. Well, I hate to tell you, but the end of the year is too big of stretch today. It's too little, too late. And at this point, a lot of the people you might recognize have already left because you go to work for a good company and you leave because of a bad manager, that they've had it. And so, and the younger generation, the largest in the workplace today, they're leaving faster. The average tenure for a millennial is 18 months and dropping. And then all their friends are doing the same thing. So it's like a revolving door. And that's, I'm not sure how it is in India, but right now we are at record amount of turnover. It's called the Great Resignation. And people, last April, it was a record, and every month since, it's exceeded that record. So every month, more and more people are quitting. In November, it was 4.5 million people that quit to find a different job. That's a huge, huge loss, and it makes companies have to spend more and more time just on recruiting. My wife's company, and it's not that big of a company. I think there's 60 employees. They've got 50 open recs, 50 open jobs, and every day she's part of a team that's interviewing somebody every day, multiple people, because they've got so many open recs. Well, for every person you could have held on to, that's one less person that you have to hire. So maybe focus on doing that. And the number one secret to holding on to people is recognition. If you have a culture of recognition where it's something that's commonly done, that everyone's doing it, the leaders, the peers, peer team to team, the executives, the CEO, that it's part of how we do things around here. We're always call out excellence, and we're always quick to celebrate successes. And if you create that culture of recognition, research shows that your people will be 7 times more likely to want to stay working for your company for the rest of their career. that's a big difference
huge.
between
Yes.
turnover of every 18 months and someone says, this is where I want to stay. I love the work. I love the people. I love what we're doing. I love who we're doing it for. Why would I think of going somewhere else? And that's within the reach of everyone to take that seriously. So whether you're a small business, a lot of times people in small business say, well, I don't have the budget to really recognize people, meaning they're thinking they just got to give them more money and that's going to be recognition. It's like, no. Stop. Don't think like that. First of all, look at what you do have. Don't focus on what you don't have. Focus on what you do have. And if you're a small company, you've got flexibility. You're not rule bound by a 300-page policy manual. You've got daily connection with the leaders. There are a lot of big companies that I've met employees that have never even met a top manager where they work. You've got so many things. You've got autonomy, which is very powerful today. That money is not necessarily the top of the list. Money is important, and you got to pay people fairly, but you got to treat them even better. You got to treat them superbly, and that means getting to know them and find out how they like to be valued and thanked when they do good work. Not just to be nice, but when they do good work, and then make that happen, and the whole game changes.
Wow, I had actually, Bob, to be very honest, I had a huge expectation from this podcast, and you are brilliant in explaining all this. And for all the stuff that you have said, thank you so much for all of that. And finally, we have reached the end of this podcast. Would like to know, how can our listeners reach out to you?
Well, thank you so much. I've got a website, www.drbobnelson.com. That's DRBOBNELSON.com, where I've got all my books at discounted prices. I talk about my services. I speak, I consult, I do some coaching, and I've done it around the world. So if you're in India and you have an interest in possibly using my services, I've got an Indian representative I put you in touch with, and we would coordinate when I'm next in India how we would make a stop at your company or do some companies have me do client services. They bring in their clients and they offer me as a service to all of them to, again, spread the word of principles at work from a lean expert. And so they all can benefit. So again, it's a technique to draw their clients closer to them. In fact, I did one of those recently, and the company had, they invited all their best clients and they asked them each to bring a colleague that wasn't a client. So it was reinforcing their existing clients, but then also spreading the word to help attract prospects of potential new clients. And they'd have me be the draw for that because they all took away things that could help them in their job in their company right now. But so all of that I love doing. I've been doing it for over 25 years, and would love to. Even if it was just a question, they could email me, and I'd do my best to give them a response and help them as best I can. My email, surprisingly, is bob@drbobnelson.com. So
yeah, I have noticed that. Thank you for all your insights, Bob, and all the ideas that you have shared today.
Thanks for having me, and thank you for your company making the most of this topic, Employee Appreciation Day, throughout the month of March.
Thank you so much, and I seriously hope to meet you again soon. Thanks a lot.
Likewise.
Thanks for listening to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage HR Influencers Podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.